think that's
It's everyone.
okay, Richie. Yeah.
Exactly that pass, so might as well get started, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thanks everybody for coming. This is our first webinar, and thanks to Age-Friendly Fingal for co-hosting with us. My name is Richie, so I'm the Health Promotion and Training Coordinator with the North Dublin Regional Drug and Alcohol Task Force. I suppose just a few housekeeping rules, if you want to call them that. Everybody's automatically muted when they come in, because I suppose just to kind of keep any distractions out of the way in terms of phones in the background or dogs or babies and that kind of thing. But we do have a function in the chat to ask questions. So if anybody's any questions, you can ask there. Also, we're hoping to have a quick discussion maybe at the end if there is questions. So what we'll do is, if people are familiar with the hands up function, so if you go down to participants and beside your name, you can put your hand up. So Breed will be keeping an eye on that. As well, just to say, we are recording this because I suppose there's a lot of value in a conversation like this, and we can use it down the line. So if people want to turn their cameras off, they can. That's no problem. But yeah, so I suppose we can get started. I'm just going to share my screen. 2 seconds now. Okay, so yeah, I suppose what brings us here today is that we're all interested in I suppose, alcohol in relation to older people. Some are here in a professional capacity, that they're working with older people, or they're working in a drug and alcohol setting. Other people might just be here out of their own interest. They might be thinking of somebody close to them or something like that. But I suppose in my role generally, I work for the task force, like I said, as the Health Promotion and Training Coordinator. So I would be heavily involved in a lot of the prevention initiatives. For those of you that mightn't be familiar with task forces, there's 24 task forces nationally. So we've 10 regionals and 14 locals. So each of those will be responsible for coordinating the kind of drug and alcohol response in the communities in their area. Generally, prevention, like I said, does tend to be focused on young people. And we kind of have this assumption that we need to sort of get them when they're young. It's like an inoculation where you give somebody, a shot for months or something, off they go. But really, prevention should kind of follow people through their life course. Their context change, and with that, their drug or alcohol relationship with drugs or alcohol might change also. So that's why I'm really glad there's so many disciplines here today. So I suppose what's unique to older people with alcohol is that there can be additional complications in terms of their health with alcohol. So it can kind of bring about ill health in itself. It can compound ill health, and it can make recovery a lot harder. As we get older also, we metabolize alcohol less efficiently. So that's something to consider, I suppose. And as well, we've an aging population. So we're seeing more of a strain on the health service in terms of we've more older people in Ireland. And then if more of them are drinking as well, that's going to put a strain on the health service. So just a few statistics then on alcohol in older people. So there's two main sources. So there's the National Alcohol Diary Survey and TILDA, somebody you'd be familiar with. So the National Alcohol Diary Survey was completed in 2013. So it's a little bit dated, but that would have found that 65% of older people, that's age 65 and above, drank alcohol the previous year. So compared to the general population, that was about 77%. So older people would tend to drink a bit less, and they definitely drink more frequently, I suppose, but less in terms of the overall quantity of alcohol. As well, that study showed that about 1 in 9 older people drank alone, which is something I suppose to be concerned about, that a lot of people are drinking in terms of managed isolation. And then from the TILDA study, so that's the Irish longitudinal study on aging, that would have found that 4.8% of older people would have described themselves as having a problem with drinking. So they might have had an interaction with alcohol treatment at some stage, or just felt that they had a problem at some point in their life. Okay, so there's just the two health warnings I'd kind of give with this is that alcohol consumption is massively underreported. So we'd see this because we get two kind of forms of statistics. First of all, we have customs and excise figures. So that tells us how much alcohol is sold in Ireland. Then we have basically what would be self-reported surveys. So the Health Research Board would do a large-scale prevalence survey. They've actually just completed one round of a survey that will be published in September, and they'd find that there's a gap about 60% of unreported drinking. So people are only reporting 40% of what's being drank in Ireland. Now I suppose that makes sense. Alcohol, it's not good for your memory. I think after a certain point of drinking, people lose track. So we might forgive people on that, but yeah, the stats can be kind of dodgy in that sense. As well, to remember that when we're talking about older people, alcohol, it tends to be metabolized more slowly. So that when we're talking about these figures in relation to older people, we maybe need to bring down the numbers a little bit in terms of what's the kind of safe level of drinking. Okay. So then I suppose I'm going to look at like physical factors, psychological factors, and the social factors. So physical health is kind of the big one we all think of. So as we get older, there's a reduction in the body fat to water ratio. So that means we can't process alcohol as quickly. Liver enzyme function is reduced, and just liver function and kidney function in general aren't as efficient as they used to be, like all the organs in the body as we get older. So that makes it harder for people to basically process and metabolize alcohol and get it through their system. We also have the higher incidence of illness in older people. So as we get older, we're more likely to be sick, and alcohol can interfere with our immune system. So it can inhibit the immune system. It can cause a lot of illnesses in itself. So there's a lot of cancers, let's say, related to alcohol. So that's something to consider. And it, like I said at the start, it makes recovery a lot harder. Then there's the issue of falls. So I think anybody working with older people will be conscious that falls are a very significant issue. And I suppose when people fall, if they break a bone or something, that's what's treated. But we kind of have to maybe look in the background of why they're falling. And alcohol can often feature in that people are falling because they've been drinking. Okay. And as well, we need to consider people's physical health in terms of the medication they're on. So I think about 50% of people over 60 in Ireland are on a daily medication of some sort. So different medications can be absorbed differently depending on if alcohol is present. Sometimes alcohol can sort of take their effects away. It can change how they're metabolized. I'm thinking especially of benzodiazepine type drugs, that if people are drinking and using those, so they're drugs like Valium, you'd hear Roach and D5s, D10s, those kind of drugs, that if people are drinking with those, they can be very unsteady on their feet. So I think what we need to consider is how we're maybe prescribing these medications, and that when we are prescribing them, that we're asking people about their alcohol use and making sure people are very aware that alcohol can interact negatively with these meds. It also that's kind of brings up the need for screening and brief intervention, I think, as well. Just in relation to that, I had a conversation with Liz Gilligan, who's the alcohol liaison nurse in Beaumont last week, and so she gave me a bit of a picture of what's been going on in the hospital there. So during the kind of COVID lockdown, the hospital functions obviously changed a little bit, but in that time she's had, I think, 145 referrals to her from within the hospital. So that's basically people have come into the hospital and they've had a health issue, and then somebody said, well, we need to look at your alcohol also. So 46% of those were over 60, which is a significant chunk, and 2/3 of those were male. So it's quite, Liz is very busy. She's the only alcohol liaison nurse, and that's a huge amount of people coming into her. So then in May, Liz would have made some referrals to our one of our services called the North Dublin Community Care Service. So that's the adult support service for people having problems with drugs or alcohol. So a significant number referred on for treatment. And within those, there was a lot of people had falls, so they're broken bones, dislocations, hips, that kind of thing. A few people were suffering from alcohol seizures. So that would be when somebody's going through an alcohol withdrawal, that they might suffer a seizure. There was a case of somebody with brain damage due to a fall from related to their drinking. Then liver issues, poor vascular health, those kind of things. So it's a significant kind of additional burden on people's health. Mm-hmm. There's psychological health then as well. The link to alcohol and anxiety is there for everybody. So I suppose most people would recognize the idea that when people drink, they might feel a little bit happier, but then when the alcohol wears away, they're going to feel a kind of a lower mood. So that can be associated with anxiety. Long term, then we can see depression creeping in, especially if people are drinking regularly. Tends to be more prominent in older women. So when they do surveys, older women would report that feeling more often than men, which is interesting. And I suppose related to the physical health is brain health. I suppose that's where the interaction between the psychological and the physical can happen sometimes. That if people are drinking heavily regularly, their brain health mightn't be great. So they've less density of white matter in the brain, and they can be more at risk of developing forms of dementia, Alzheimer's, and then you have things like Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, which is wet brain. So that's a particular diagnosis related to alcohol and psychological health. And then the social health. So older people, not everybody, but a lot of them would, a lot of older people would have decreased social activity. So if you think a lot of their networks as people grow older, so they're not working anymore, they might be playing sport, they might have suffered some bereavements in their life, kids might have grown up and moved on. So those kind of social circles could decrease very quickly. All of a sudden, people go from being very busy, raising a family, working, doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden that those things can disappear very quickly. So that's something that's closely linked to alcohol. I think we always hear it around when there's reductions in, or when there's initiatives around drink driving, especially, and we have a lot of rural TDs. I won't mention any names, but they kind of would from Kerry. But they would talk a lot about, we can't be, we need to be, people should be able to have a few drinks and drive home and that kind of thing. And it does bring up the question of, like, is alcohol something that includes people or does it exclude people? Because if we go back to what I said earlier, that 65% of over 65s report drinking in the last year, that means that there's 35% that don't drink. And so that's, that's 1/3 of the group we're talking about. And are they find it difficult to be included with their peers if it's all based around the pub or that kind of thing? Or are there a cohort of people that don't want to drink and are choosing to drink because if they don't, they're left out? So I think that's something we probably need to confront, maybe nationally, for everybody, the role alcohol plays in socialization in Ireland. And just with those kind of 3 sets of factors, with older people, there's always barriers to identifying them. So sometimes the symptoms of an alcohol-related issue can be very similar to a health-related issue. So you mightn't see it as an alcohol-related issue. As well, like I said, the social circles are decreased, so you don't have as many opportunities maybe to spot an issue with older people. Like, I'm thinking of groups like Alone, who would work with people who are severely isolated. Nobody's going to capture any of their health issues because they don't see anybody. So that's something to consider around isolation. Sometimes as well, workers, we feel awkward maybe challenging older people around alcohol use. When I say challenge, just even bringing it up, because it's sort of seen as like, oh, well, it's a young person's issue. Or somebody might say, well, they've worked hard all their life and leave them alone and they're entitled to a few drinks. But I think if it's having a severe effect on people's health, it is something we do need to talk about. So that sets me up nicely for the next slide, which is SARE training. So I think Breed has a little poll around SARE training because we're interested to see how many people are aware of it or would like to get involved. But basically, SARE is a 1-day training that the HSE have developed, and it's a brief intervention tool to help people kind of have very structured conversations around concerns around somebody else's alcohol or drug use. So you can see it there, it's broken down into 4 steps. So it's around supporting people, actually asking them the question around alcohol or drug use. It can be easy to kind of skirt around that sometimes. The assessment, there's screening built into it. So there is the audit tool, which very easy to use, but people can kind of use it to get a score on somebody's drinking and give them feedback on that. And then there's things in there around referral. But it's a great program. It was originally developed in acute settings in emergency departments, and there was a need there for amongst staff to kind of feel more comfortable with asking these questions. So it was very successful, and now it's been rolled out. Everybody in the community, we run SARE training. We've had bar staff, we've had GA coaches, lots of people, because I think I'd see it a bit like maybe like Assist or Safe Talk, that the more people we have in the community trained up to deliver SARE, the more chance we have of catching people when we can do a brief intervention rather than waiting until things get more severe, I suppose. One of the interesting stats from the studies of SARE when it was ran in hospitals was that out of people that were screened, 94% of them were absolutely fine with it. Which says to me that, there's a fear out there, like I said, of asking people about their drug or alcohol use, but realistically, most people are fine with the questions being asked. I think for a lot of people, they might actually feel relieved if somebody's asking this question, because it's something they might have thought about or had concerns themselves. So it's definitely something. I'm in the middle of training for SARE now, but I'm hoping to be rolling it out whenever things get back to normal, I think. But we have a few SARE trainers here, but we'll see what the poll tells us. Then in terms of prevention, so prevention is sort of more my area. There's 3 levels of prevention traditionally. So we have universal prevention, so that's the whole population. So when I say whole population, that's not everybody in Ireland. That could be you're working in maybe a department in a hospital or somewhere like that, and you decide we're going to give out a leaflet to everybody that comes in, any adult that comes in. So that's an intervention that goes to everybody. There's no discrimination or risk assessment in that, okay? Then selective is working with a subgroup. So again, you might be working with a group of people and you're worried about how they're drinking or if they're at risk of drugs or alcohol use, and you might put something in place that kind of diverts or distracts them from that. So again, I'm kind of using an example of, I used to live close to Willie Birmingham Place, and there was a group of older people there would sit out quite early, start drinking quite early, and it was probably because they had nothing else to do to socialise. So an intervention for that subgroup might be, we'll put something in place that, you know, keeps them busy during the day, and then if they want to drink, okay, they're drinking later, they're probably not drinking as much. And then SARE would be more sort of like what we call an indicated prevention initiative. So that tends to be more targeted individuals. So the reason I have the two triangles there, I suppose universal would reach a lot of people and it can be quite low in intensity in terms of resources. Whereas indicated prevention initiatives, they tend to be very resource intensive because you're working maybe with an individual rather than, you know, a universal intervention could be an ad on the telly that goes out to over 1 million people. It's kind of very low intensity that way. Okay, so then plan and intervention, I suppose a few resources. So the European Monitoring Centre on Drug and Drug Abuse have a nice best practice portal called the Exchange Registry. So I'll send around links to all this in the presentations, but unfortunately there's not a lot there specifically for older people, but it would give you some really good ideas of other interventions that would be whole population that you could tailor maybe a little bit. Very easy to use. So that's worth a look. The Vintage Project, that's an Italian project that's a little bit dated now. It's set up around 2010, and they would have published a report on alcohol interventions specifically for older people. And so again, I can send that around. That website there, there's just a report on it. It's not as easy to use because it is a little bit older, but if you had the time to maybe look through it, it would give you a lot of really good evidence on what tends to work better with older people and what doesn't, okay? I suppose the task force, we're here to help with anybody that wants to kind of plan an intervention. So we'd be happy to hear from anybody that's thinking about doing some work with older people around alcohol use. And Ask About Alcohol, that is the National Alcohol Resource website. So it's been merged into the HSE website. There's a link there for it also. And lastly, like I said at the start, we have a catchment. So our catchment would be sort of from Portmarnock up to Balbriggan, over to Knoll, the Meath border. Then we take in Airport, St. Margaret's, Scarstown, Old Town, that sort of area. And Louise is obviously, she's whole of Fingal. So our task force, our number's there. That number will also get you through to the North Dublin Community Care Service. So that's a free, confidential, non-judgmental support service for any adult experiencing problems in relation to drug or alcohol use. Fingal Families is there as well. That's a family support service. So that's for families or individuals who are having trouble with maybe a loved one or someone else's drug or alcohol use. So they'll provide support as well. That's something that I think a lot of people often forget, that you know, a person might be having problems with their own drug alcohol use, but that will have knock-on problems for family members and that. And in terms of treatment outcomes, when families engage with treatment as well, the outcomes tend to be a lot better as well. So then there's the HSE Addiction Service that covers our area, and then Blanchardstown Local Drug and Alcohol Task Force, they would cover the part of Fingal that we don't. So that's me. So I don't know if Louise is up next.
Thank you, Richie. Yeah, I think that was very interesting. I suppose my name is Louise Edmonds and I'm the Fingal Age Friendly Programme Manager. I'm coming at this from a different point of view, where I'm looking at the older person as my priority. And I suppose some of the difficulties that we would have had in the last number of months in particular has heightened the demand for alcohol within their own homes. And that's why when Richie said would it be a good idea to link in with this, I jumped at it, to be honest with you. But I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the Age Friendly Programme, where we're coming from, and then maybe if you have any questions or answers that you might want to come up with at that stage, please feel free to do so. Richie, are you okay to share that for me?
Yep, 2 secs.
Cheers.
I have it now. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much. This is literally just my own page, so you can go to the second one. Really, what I'm saying is that Fingal are delighted to be here to I suppose, to share a little bit of information really about age-friendly Fingal and what we are doing to support senior citizens throughout the county. Our vision is to make Fingal a great place to live for our seniors, to live and grow and enjoy being here with dignity and respect. Our mission is to make sure that the Age Friendly Alliance, which is a group of organisations which include the Health Board, the Transportation, DIT, TUs, also so the ITBs, all the local colleges, DCU. We'd have all those people on our alliance and they would help us make the right decisions for the seniors across Fingal. I do think there's a place there for the Drugs Task Force, by the way. So I'll be coming after you in the near future. Our partition is always around, and our values will be to have the voice of the older people and to make sure that they are known, that they're valued, that their input is recognised and it's taken on board. Our policy is all around inclusion and recognising that the older people are not a homogenous group. We embrace the diversity of our older people within Fingal, and we do promote inclusivity across our county. We do our utmost to respect all the people who come on board and work with us. We are committed to fostering a culture of respect for our seniors throughout the county. Our challenges have been in the last number of months, which I'm sure you're all so aware of, but I'm putting it down just so I'll have it for future reference. And it's all around COVID-19 and trying to get to people, trying to make sure that nobody is left out. I suppose the biggest fear that we had within Fingal and the COVID-19 community response team was that what if we miss somebody? So that has been a huge challenge for us, and we have linked in with a lot of groups and organisations across the country, as they have across the whole country, not just Fingal, but getting information to everyone who needs the support, especially our older population. There was a perception that everyone has IT skills and they can all get onto the internet. They can't. And we should never assume people can get in touch with you. We have to put it out there again and again and again, whether it's with leaflets or newsletters, on the television, on the radio, you know, get information to people so they know who they can contact. So by doing that, we've had over 1,000 people who've contacted us, and we get, with the help of our GAAs and volunteers right across the county, they deliver groceries, prescriptions, do Meals on Wheels, and it's all about keeping connected. And we do that in a number of ways, which I can talk to you later on about. This is all about adjusting to new ways of living. And thank you, Richie. And I suppose it's become very stressful for people. And more we have heard back from the seniors through conversations. They are relying a bit more on alcohol than they'd even wish to themselves. So we are finding this is a very, very stressful time for people. And you can turn to alcohol easier when you're very stressed. That is our COVID response number on the end. And this information's available for everyone at the end of this. Thanks, Richie. Yeah, what we already know is that as we get older, our bodies are less able to break down our alcohol, and the effects are so much more harmful on our bodies. The over 55s, which are under what the World Health Organization see over 55s as the older population. They are renewing this, thankfully, to the ages of 65, as our older population is now going to be, like, we have lots of people, young people in Ireland who will definitely live to 110. So we are now shifting the boundaries up to 65 and over for our senior citizens. But until then, I have to stick on my 55s. And that means that it's just, we have to recognize the harm that it can cause to us as we are getting older. The longer lasting side effects, which are detrimental to our health and well-being. Because if we're drinking alcohol more, there are more opportunities for us for slips, trips and falls. And that results in itself in more trips to A&E, as Richie alluded to earlier on. And I was amazed to hear 145 referrals, which was quite big, you know, within a few months. So I think that's something that we all have to be aware of, is the knock-on effect of it. The health problems that come along with this are your body works less effectively and efficiently when you get older, including your liver. That seems to take one of the biggest hits. But it also means that we can't process alcohol as well. The same amount of alcohol will damage us so much more as we get older. on each of those headings there, you can go into those headings and that'll give you a huge piece of information on it that I knew we wouldn't have time to go into today. But it can cause heart disease. It can bring on cancers. It can be a huge influence on how strokes are happening. Liver problems, definitely. Brain damage. Too much alcohol can worsen existing health conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure and osteoporosis. But when it comes to the brain damage, that has such a knock-on effect for slips, trips and falls for people. Our brain functions. Alcohol, as you know, affects all our brains in different ways. It increases problems with coordination, memory and our judgment. This can make all of us more vulnerable to whether it's accidents and injuries such as falling, road traffic accidents, and forgetting to turn off electrical appliances and door locks. And that's thereby you're risking your own security. You can also be more exploited easier by someone and abused if your judgment is more affected with alcohol. And I think when it comes to our brain functions, it's the long-term knock-on effect that can be seen where people are losing their balance so much quicker when they have alcohol consumption in them. And if they're doing it on a daily basis, you are wearing down your body. Your body is not getting a chance to recover. Thanks, Richie. Tolerance of alcohol and medications is one of great concern and with our older population. Through consultation with my senior citizens, I would have a group of 22 seniors that represent the population of senior citizens across the county of Fingal. And we had a very worthwhile discussion back last November, planning for our Christmas event, and it was around the worries and concerns of how alcohol is definitely, it doesn't take as much alcohol to get you drunk anymore at all, was what was said to me. And I suppose it's been taken on board that the amount of medications that are some of our seniors, not all, but some of our seniors will be taking on a daily basis, there's a knock-on effect, and the alcohol would negate, I suppose, the work of your antibiotics, your tranquilizers, your sedatives, whatever sort of medication you're on, whether it's for your heart or your head, as they say. The alcohol can have a very negative effect on the working of that medication. So I suppose, as it says here in front of you, it can make you drink. Less drink will get you drunker, right? Short and simple. It can also be a sign that you're getting so dependent on alcohol. It can interfere with your medications. It can stop your medications working altogether. It does say, please talk to your doctors, talk to a friend, talk to people that love and care for you, and get advice on it, because there's lots of help out there. It's just knowing the right people to turn to, but also to be aware of the different how alcohol is affecting different people that we're working with, especially our senior population. Thanks, Richie. I suppose when it comes to it, a lot of people will be drinking more alcohol at the moment, purely through fear of having to stay in all the time. Being told they have to stay in is a terrible thing for anybody. But if you're dealing with people 60, 70 and 80 and they've been told they can't go outside the door, they do get more anxious. They are definitely very stressed, and they are suffering with a terrible amount of loneliness and isolation. And unfortunately, a number of them have turned to drinking more alcohol over the last number of months in particular. I do feel that we have a job on our hands in encouraging people to now get back out and get involved in the wider community. I think that there's going to be an awful lot of planning ahead to be done to encourage people back out, because there is a terrible fear in people that what if I catch it? What if? And I think what has happened over the last number of months, and it's not all down to alcohol consumption, this is a fear factor. I've been told for so long, you can't come outside because you might catch something. Our older population are now feeling weak and very fragile. So when any of us are working with them within our community settings, I suppose to be aware that it might take a little bit longer for people to get up and going and to get out on the ground. One lady went out for a walk the other day, and she got as far as her front gate and decided she had to turn back in because she didn't think her legs would hold her outside. And that was pure fear that struck her when she got to her front garden. And I think this is something that we'll have to take on board for future reference, for when we're telling people that they have to isolate and they have to stay in. We have to we will have to plan ahead for people coming back out into the community and for sharing in the wider groups and community groups. Thank you. Oh yeah, what if you know somebody who's taken alcohol in a harmful way? I suppose what we can do is be more aware when we're dealing with our people. And I know this goes for everyone, but I suppose my priority is my seniors. And it could be very easy to miss the signs. But if you're working in this field, please be more aware of the signs of alcohol and how it's harming people. And this could be shown up through sleeping problems, where they're sleeping too much or not at all, a cognitive impairment, their memory or concentration disturbance, frequent falls and unexplained bruising. And I know that can be down to a number of other health issues, but if it's through alcohol, you'll know whether it's falling onto their arms and banging their heads, low mood or depression, their incontinence or urinary retention, poor hygiene and self-neglect. These are just some things that might trigger an awareness of people's overindulgence in alcohol. We are never saying to people, do not drink. That is not how I work with people. They're all adults. We have to remember that everyone has a choice to take a drink or two, but it's when it goes to 2 or 3 or 4 drinks every night in a row that's when it's becoming a problem. And I suppose, I'm not saying to make allowances for people, but to be understanding as to the problems and the worries that they are going through, and to be very caring in how we approach this. Always remember to contact your health professionals and to get advice from the correct places. This information is all taken from the Health Board and HSE on their alcohol programme. It's something that I've used with seniors before, and I do believe that if we can work our way forward in dealing with our senior citizens, we'll go a long way. But my final word on this, I suppose, would be for now, is to talk to them. Don't make assumptions. It could be if you see them on one day or they smell of alcohol, it might be that they had a few drinks the night before. It doesn't mean that they're drinking every single night. But if you talk to people, you will generally get the story of them. Most people want to talk and need to talk, especially at this moment in time. Thank you, Richie.
Okay, so Breed's been looking at the chat. Have you, Breed? Is there any questions or anything?
No, I've had a few people contact me kind of privately looking for different things. But I suppose just to reinforce that there are supports available, and if you are working with people and you're unsure to make contact and phone, I'm particularly conscious that Barbara is there from the Community Care Service, and that's a frontline free and confidential service that's available to anyone in North County Dublin. So if you have people that you are concerned about and have disclosed that they are having difficulties with alcohol, I mean, use the supports that are there. They're offering all the services that they were offering pre-COVID, they're just doing it remotely by Zoom now. Highly qualified, experienced and extremely compassionate team. And Siobhan Marr, who is up on my right there, is a family support specialist as well with the task force, and that because obviously that can have an impact on family members, and sometimes family members, they don't know how to address it within the home as well. So just to let you know, there is a free and confidential family support service there, and there's a range of interventions and supports that Siobhan provides, and it's absolutely fantastic. We're inundated with calls from family members who are really concerned about their loved ones, their mums or their dads or granddads or grandmoms even, that are experiencing problems with alcohol and actually just don't know where to turn. So so some of the questions people were just asking just for clarification around what some of those services were, and of course then just maybe around Sarah, Richie, the poll I don't know if you can see it there, but 22% of all the, I think it was nearly 50 responses back, have said that they have completed SARE training, so that's really good, and are using it. And 14% have completed SARE, but are not using it. And I suppose that's something we're looking at, because we all do training and then we go off and kind of forget about it, you know. So that's something we probably need to think about. And very interested that 39% there said that they're not SARE training. Of you said you haven't done the SARE training and would like to do it. So we run SARE training, so that's something, it's a one-day training. We'll certainly come back to you about that. And 33% said that they'd like to know more about it. So that's you know, a good nearly 3/4 of the people who are here on this webinar, who I suppose are looking for some more support, or certainly information, if not training, in relation to SARE. So I suppose with your permission, we'll certainly send you out some information about that and maybe schedule a training too. So I don't know, can people hear me okay? But that's what's coming in. Oh, there is some more questions. So Jane has a question there. I don't know, do you want to unmute people?
Yeah, if you want to unmute
questions,
and Jane can just ask directly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to see, can I find Jane on the participants list to unmute there, Jane?
There's Jane there. Hold on. I can unmute her.
Can you, please?
I think. Yeah.
Hi.
There you go, Jane.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm a public health nurse in North Dublin, and the SARE training is of interest to me. It's something that we incorporate at every level when we meet older persons, be it for the first time or at recurrent episodes during their care with us. I couldn't submit breathe on the poll of my interest. For some reason it wouldn't work.
Oh.
So I would have interest in looking at that training day in particular. And one of the questions I have is in relation to, for Richie, is how do you accept referrals? In what way are they taken? Are they written? Are they telephone? Are they from the actual individual, from family members, or what's the format?
Okay, this would be a great time to bring in Barbara, if you want to unmute Barbara. Barbara's the coordinator of the community care service. So Barbara will be...
Hi Barbara.
There you go, Barbara.
Yeah.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, Barbara.
Yeah.
How are you?
Well, I think Breed caught it there between ourselves and family support. You can self-refer, or you can be referred by somebody like yourself.
Okay.
And what happens then is within 2 days they're contacted and an assessment is set up, and then we assign them a caseworker. I just had mentioned in the last, since March, we've had 24 referrals of alcohol, of which 50% are the higher age, from 50 up. So that's quite significant. So we've quite a few at the moment, all doing, I have to say, extremely well, because Breed had mentioned we have very caring, very professional caseworkers at the moment, and doing extremely good work. So older people, although they're harder sometimes because they isolate, as Richie said, we find that as soon as they connect in and they connect with some caring, they're quite mature and ready to engage. So yeah, so self-referral by phone, or referral form we can send to you, Jane. If you want to send me your email,
Okay.
I can send you out.
I can do, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I was just wondering from that aspect around kind of confidentiality and consent, Barbara, you know, and also with regards to GDPR, like sharing information from healthcare professional to, you know, healthcare professional, is that something, is it within the HSE parameters that we can communicate with the task force?
Once they give consent for us to share information, we can talk to whoever else are working alongside. And like that with family support, we would always encourage those that are around them, supporting them for their sakes, to maybe do a place where we'd have 3 or 4 way meeting and discuss their plan, what they would want to see happen, so that there's not one person doing one thing and another person doing another thing, that we're all working in the best interest of their, where they want to change.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Barbara.
And just Jane, maybe Siobhan, do you want to just very quickly as well talk about
Sure, yeah, just with regard to family support. Yeah, if family members are looking to link in with Fingal families because they are concerned about a family member, again, like the CCS, they can ring, they can self-refer, and I can pass on, well, the phone number is there, we can pass on the referral form to anybody that would be interested in making a referral for a concerned person or family member. But yeah, it's like when somebody is linked into CCS, as Barbara was saying, if their family members are getting the support as well, there's a better chance of recovery. It's a lot better for the family member. It's a lot better for the service user, for the person using alcohol. It just makes more sense to be linked into both CCS and the Fingal families family support service, if that's possible. So if there is anybody there that wants the information or the referral form or the leaflet of what we offer, because we offer a menu of options for family members. We do one-to-one, we do group work, we do 5-step, we do parenting programs. I can send on all of that information if that's what people want.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks, guys.
Everybody's muted, by the way, so if you have questions, you probably need to just
put your hand up.
Just kind of send a little message in the chat there, and you try and answer.
Sorry, back to Jane. You put your hand up, Jane. Do you want to come back in?
Oh no, I was just demonstrating. Put your hand up if you want to say something. Sorry.
All right, we're going to go up to is this? Did you want to come in there?
I'm going to unmute all. That's what I'm doing. Everybody is unmuted now.
Dangerous.
Unmute.
Okay.
No, they're not all unmuted as yet, Breed.
They can unmute themselves now.
Oh, well then.
Has taken the unmute off.
Yeah.
Everybody will get a message sent, and if they want to speak, they can unmute themselves.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There's a message I see from Udemy. Saying, is that correct?
Yes, you are right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got it wrong. Wunmi, what organization are you with?
I'm actually coordinating the Children for War Children in Blanchardstown.
Okay.
Fingal County Council. Yeah.
Okay.
With Fingal County Council. Yeah.
And you deliver fruit and healthy foods to older people, is it?
Yes. We've been doing that from the onset of COVID-19. Our first target group were the ethnic minorities, especially the non-English speakers. Okay. But recently we decided to move more, to open up more, to accommodate more, because we have funding from Fingal County Council. And so every week, we distribute fruits, organic fruits and vegetables for the locals, especially the elderlies that are cocooning. Yeah.
That's great to know. And would you mind putting up the phone number? Is that okay? If people are looking to get deliveries, just if there are, public health nurses or anyone on this webinar who might need to avail of your service. Is that okay?
Yes, very correct. Please, I'm sending our contact number now.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brit.
Thanks. That's great support. Great to know that. We were running a cocoon for a couple of months. If we'd known about that.
Would have been great to know that then.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you I see it there. That's great. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'll hand it back to you, Richie. Sorry.
No, unless anybody has anything else they want to add or ask.
is everyone happy enough that they have enough information that if you do come across senior citizens and they want to get connected, I saw in activities, put them, I suppose, encourage them to contact me, which is Louise Edmonds through Fingal County Council, Age Friendly, and I'll be able to support them by helping them to join clubs or groups or organisations if they want to get out and about a bit more.
Okay. So I'll put that up there. So it's louise.edmonds@fingalcoco.ie.
At fingal.ie, yeah.
Yeah, or fingal.ie. Okay. It's just kind of...
Hi, Angela King.
I have another poll there, and I think it's the final one. So, Richie, I'll hand it over to you.
Yep. No, that's great. First of all, say thanks. Like, this was our first webinar. It's a scary new world, but that seemed to go okay. I hope people got something out of it. We might do more. Like I said during my presentation, I'm going to email you out the slides from myself and Louise, and maybe some contact info. I might attach the referral forms for both Fingal families and the CCS as well, just so that people have them. Just some info. But as well, I've emailed you all, so if anybody wants to get in touch, feel free. That's the main thing, I think. If you can take that away, that we're always at the end of the phone, or you just give us an email if you have any questions in relation to drugs or alcohol, no matter what age group you're working with. So that's it. Thanks again. Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Richie. It was really interesting. Thanks very much.
And just the poll, I don't know if you can all see the poll before we go, that delighted to see that 94% of people who've responded there would like to attend other alcohol related webinars. So really, really happy with that. And certainly, because this was our very first one, so we weren't sure how it was going to go. We will definitely, and we've got new equipment, so the next one's going to be fancier. Lots of stuff happening at the next one, but we do through the meeting with dance. I see that there's a couple of people there have said they're going to send some ideas. Really happy to hear that. We're always open to new ideas. And a couple of people who've said they'd like to contribute. So again, if that is you, please send us an email, and we'll try and incorporate your ideas, or even include you in some of the inputs. So thank you very much. Very, very, very grateful for your attendance.
Well
and
done.
thanks very much to our promotion and training coordinator, Richie. And thank you to Louise Edmonds, who we have a long history with the task force. She's been on our board for many years before she was elevated to her senior position with I
wouldn't say elevated.
Yeah. So listen, thanks very much. And I see a couple of our task force members. Dean Mulligan is there as well. Good to see you, Dean. We'll be talking to you later on. So well done, Richie. Well done, Louise.
Well done.
And
thank you.
Everybody else.
Lovely to see all the faces that I recognise. It's great to see us on the screen.
And looking forward to hearing all your great ideas.
Sorry, Brit. Sorry, Brit. Before you go. Sorry, Brit. And I hope Louise is going to share the slide with us, if you don't mind. I can send you my email.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that okay, Louise?
Absolutely, womanly, no problem.
Okay, I'll forward you my email now. Thanks so much.
That's great. Thank you, Mimi, for your details there. I think there's going to be a lot of uptake on that. So I hope you have plenty of apples and oranges there now. So.
Yes, apple dampers, fresh ones. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.